The national media doesn't think the Chicago Bears will be as good this season as they were last year. But Bears fans see last year as a jumping off point to reach new heights in 2026. So why is there such a disconnect, and where does the truth land somewhere in between?
You are Locked On Bears, your daily Chicago Bears podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Bears, and I'm your host, Lauren Cox. I'm here to bring you your daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. Today's episode is brought to you by Odoo. Great organizations win because operations matter, and that's why you should get Odoo. Try for free today at odoo.com/lockedon. That's odoo.com/lockedon. On the show today, I want to explore this difference between the fan base's expectation of the Chicago Bears this season and the national perspective and expectation on the Bears, where they differ, how much they differ, and why they differ. Some of the specific reasons that lead to different levels of expectations for this team in 2026. And then we'll look at what it will take for the Bears to really, truly, fully convince people that, hey, this team is legit, this team is really good, and you should believe in them as a contender year in and year out with Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams at the helm. Because I think you hear Chicago Bears fans looking at last season and saying, hey, first place in the NFC North, an 11-win team, they were ahead of schedule, right? They weren't supposed to be that good that fast. And so now they can build off of already being ahead of schedule and keep working from there. The idea is that, oh, this Bears team won the division, won 11 games, won a playoff game, while still learning Ben Johnson's offense and not being a finished product on that side of the ball, while still playing at a pretty high level, and certainly while struggling a little bit on defense and giving up some big plays and getting in some shootouts and not being anywhere close to the finished final product that they want on that side of the ball, all while being a younger team that is still developing and still growing, and that as those younger players get another offseason of development, another offseason within the coaching ecosystem of Ben Johnson and Dennis Allen, that therefore the Chicago Bears should be even better in 2026 than they were in 2025. Like, they were just scratching the surface of their potential last season, and they won 11 games. So presumably, as they grow into that potential this season, they should be able to take even bigger steps forward. Like, that's where Chicago Bears fans sit in the middle of this offseason, looking ahead to bigger and better things in 2026. But you don't get the broader national media expectations that match that. And it's one thing when you see Packers fans or whatever trolling you and telling you that the Bears are going to be last in the NFC North. Like, not that you can kind of always expect, almost regardless of what the Bears are doing on the field. But even from like more neutral or just less biased parties, perhaps, that, you know, cover the NFL more broadly, nationwide, that it's easy to have like a persecution complex of, oh, everyone's always out to get the Chicago Bears. But even like, you know, the bigger picture, like ESPN and The Ringer and USA Today and some of these groups, like, still are a little bit lower on the Chicago Bears than a lot of the local expectations are. You know, you look around power rankings, for example. ESPN's NFL Nation did a power ranking recently. They had the Bears 9th in the NFL, which is not that bad, but they had the Bears behind the Packers and the Lions on the power ranking there. And it's like, oh, well, didn't the Bears win more games than both of them and win the division and win a playoff game that beat the Packers in the playoffs last season? Like, doesn't that have to be earned? Like, nothing has happened. They haven't played any games since the Bears beat those teams and won the division. So why is Chicago behind them in the rankings? Or, you know, over at The Ringer, the most recent power rankings for them had the Bears 12th in the NFL. None of these outlets are saying the Bears are going to be bad, right? They're not stupid. They know the Bears are still going to be a competing team that is a tough team to play. But like, even The Ringer has the Bears behind the Packers and the Lions in those power rankings. I saw USA Today had them was the highest of the brief look around I did. They had the Bears 7th in power rankings and 1st in the NFC North in those rankings for now. But like, generally speaking, you see this sort of different level of confidence in Chicago. And of course, the hometown fans are always going to be a little more confident than everyone else, because whether it's a bias or whether it's just being more informed, following this team more closely. But I think about like a measurement that is built to not be biased, like betting odds. Like, you might not be the biggest sports gambler in the world, and that's totally fine. And I'm not looking at this in the context of like what is a good or a smart bet, but in the context of sportsbooks' number one goal is to make money, right? They will be as pro or as anti-Bears as it would take for them to make money, right? But they don't care whether the Bears are good or bad. They care that they are setting betting lines that make them money. So like accuracy is much more important for sports books than any kind of potential perceived bias about, the Chicago Bears or whatever. And so I think it's interesting when you look at like where FanDuel has the Bears. Again, it's not important like the odds themselves, but kind of where they rank in all of this. The Bears Super Bowl odds, like the odds to win the Super Bowl, rank 17th in the NFL. 17th in the NFL, best odds of winning the Super Bowl this year. Like, that's not the same as a power ranking, but it does say something. And it's below the Lions and the Bears, or excuse me, the Lions and the Packers in that regard. It's also below the Eagles, who the Bears beat last year. It's below the Dallas Cowboys of all teams. And some of that might be just they know Cowboys fans are going to bet, and so maybe they put the Cowboys a little bit higher. But nonetheless, 17th is really something there. And then you go to like the playoff odds, the odds to make the playoffs. The Bears rank 8th in the NFC. That would be not making the playoffs, according to the odds. They have 7 teams ahead of the Bears in the odds, below the Cowboys, below the Packers, below the Lions, despite beating all those teams, winning the division last season. Even just in the NFC North, the Bears have the 3rd best odds of winning the NFC North this season, behind the Packers and the Lions. And I don't see that as, the sports books are biased against the Chicago Bears. They're saying, well, no, we think more money is coming in on the Packers and the Lions, so we have to adjust the odds as such so that they can make money. And so they're projecting the Bears right now to finish 3rd in the NFC North. So it paints a picture of really a national perspective of just not being as high on the Bears. Like, maybe the win total is the best individual number to go by. They project Lions at over under 10.5, Bears and Packers at 9.5, and Vikings at 8.5. Like, everyone outside of Chicago expects the Chicago Bears to win fewer games, perform worse in the NFC North, and be less of a playoff Super Bowl contender this season than they finished last season. And that's always been curious to me, right? I think some of that might have to do with, the Bears having a harder schedule this season on paper, that because you have to play, the Seahawks and the Patriots and some of the best teams in the NFL, that even if you were to say the Bears play equally as good this year as they did last year, if you play equally good against harder teams, you would have less success as a result. But I do think it's a bit deeper than that. And so I want to go through what I see as the biggest factors as driving that difference. Like, why is there such a difference in perspective? It's not just as simple as, local fans are all homers and think the team's going to be way better than it is. No, I don't think it's quite that, because we don't have Bears fans all thinking they're going to win the Super Bowl this season. That's kind of like homer. If you expect they're going to win the Super Bowl every year, let's be realistic, you're not going to win the Super Bowl every year. But there is a difference in like where everyone sees this Bears team. And I think there's a couple of really specific factors and variables that, it's because you disagree on this, that then you disagree on the quality of the team this season. So we'll explore where we see that variance and what it will take for the Bears to convince people and get that national media respect next on Locked On Bears. This episode of Locked On Bears is brought to you by Square, the business platform helping sellers become neighborhood favorites. Whether you're preparing for a busy season or managing everyday demand, Square helps keep your business moving with everything from payments and online orders to inventory, staff management, and more, all in one place. So business owners can spend less time managing tools and more time focusing on their customers. Square helps simplify the everyday work behind running a business while giving owners the tools they need to keep growing. And it's something you'll notice as a customer supporting the local businesses you love. When I go into a local coffee shop or bar that has Square service behind, I know that customer, that owner isn't working on troubleshooting their system, but they can focus purely on me as the customer experience. Square helps you run your business more smoothly, bringing payments, operations, and insights together in one place so you're ready for whatever's next. Right now, my listeners can get up to $200 off of Square hardware when you sign up at square.com/go/LockedOnNFL. That's square.com/go/LockedOnNFL. Get started with Square and build a setup that works the way you do. Thank you for making the Locked On Bears podcast your first listen today. If you'd like to get access to an ad-free audio feed of Locked On Bears that's compatible with Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all the major podcasting apps, then be sure to check out the new Locked On Bears Everydayers Club, because that's going to get you access into an exclusive Locked On Bears listener group chat as well in the Everydayers Club Discord server. If you want to check it out, the website to go to is lockedonbears.supercast.com. And you can always find that link in the show notes or description, wherever it is that you tune into the Locked On Bears podcast. So we've established this difference where Bears fans are thinking, hey, 11 wins, NFC North championship, let's do it again and go even farther. National perspective is more like, not going to win the division, not going to win 11 games, but still pushing and competing for the playoffs. Kind of, I don't want to say borderline playoff team, but like that's kind of where the odds suggested and where the power rankings suggested, like maybe third in the NFC North, and that can be a second wild card team. That's kind of the national expectation. So why is there this difference? Why does it exist? And what is it beyond just fans are always going to think better of their team than the national media? Because, to that credit, like, I don't think the national media is underrating the Super Bowl champion Seahawks, or I don't think the national media is lower on even the Chiefs than Chiefs fans, because I think everyone expects the Chiefs to play better, both local fans and national fans. So then why are the Bears' expectations set differently or lower? Because I think the idea that I get more from the national media is that, like, Ben Johnson's really good. Everyone's all bought in on Ben Johnson, but that maybe the players and the roster aren't as good as they need to be yet. And I think a lot of that starts to get pointed toward the quarterback position. Like, I see this as three things that all point to the Bears' success from 2025 not being as sustainable in 2026, or three things that the national media perspective look at and say, that's why they were good last year but won't be as good this year. And I think that's where the disconnect then exists with Bears fans specifically. To me, it's this idea of regression and variance, that the Bears were lucky a lot in 2025. Plus, you have the unsustainability of the fourth quarter comebacks, that, they can't keep winning games like that in the fourth quarter. And then the third thing would be Caleb Williams' completion percentage. Like, as much as you can't just put everything into one stat, it creates a perception that he's not accurate enough, he's not good enough, and that they were lucky to win as many games as they did with Caleb Williams playing so, quote unquote, poorly with the low completion percentage. And I think there is merit to these ideas that, hey, yes, the Bears cannot win in 2026 the same ways they did in 2025, right? You cannot expect to do everything the same and get the same results. But then where the disconnect is beneath that is that, why then can't you expect them to win in different ways and be better in other ways? And I think that's where there's a break here. Because, you look last year, the Bears led the NFL in takeaways, 33. Probably not going to lead the league in takeaways again. It's very rare that you see the same team at the top of the NFL in takeaways for multiple seasons in a row. Maybe they can still be top five. They can still be a good team at generating takeaways, but most of your takeaway generators last year are out the door, with Kevin Byard and Deshaun Wright being among the league leaders in interceptors. Those guys are gone. Like, sure, we have a lot of faith in Kobe Bryant, Dylan Thieneman, a healthy Jalen Johnson, hopefully healthy Kyler Gordon, that they can pick up that slack and generate some turnovers in their place. But fair enough, a lot of the Bears' takeaways are out the door, and it's really hard to repeat that year over year. Okay, I'll allow that. Now, can't the defense be better in the non-takeaway areas to make it so they don't need as many takeaways to still be just as good, if not better, of a defense? Can they just cover better with a healthier secondary and safeties that better fit what Dennis Allen wants to do, with more speed at linebacker, with Devin Bush taking over the middle? And as they try and tell us, a healthier defensive line generating a better pass rush, I'm a little more skeptical about, but still, there's areas where turnovers will come down, but defense can start to be just as good, if not better, this upcoming season. Or the other things you point to, right? The Bears had the fewest offensive turnovers in the NFL last year at 11. Caleb Williams did a really good job of taking care of the football. I expect Caleb Williams to keep doing a good job of taking care of the football. Fumbles can be a little bit more random, but certainly Eric Bieniemy was a stickler for ball security, and it's the exact same running backs, top 3 on the depth chart, top 4 on the depth chart really, this year than last year. So are all of a sudden DeAndre Swift, Kyle Monangai, and maybe Roshan Johnson going to start fumbling the ball a bunch more just because Eric Bieniemy's gone? Like, they haven't really been career fumblers. I know we're new in Kyle Monangai's career, but still, like, I'm not necessarily worried that offensive turnovers are going to become a problem. Maybe they have a couple more than they did last year and they don't rank first in the NFL, but like, they could still be a top 5 team in not turning the ball over. Then we get to the fourth quarter comebacks. Of course, Bears led the NFL with 6 last season, and I agree. The Bears are not going to have 6 fourth quarter comeback victories this upcoming season. And the idea is, oh, well, if they don't have those fourth quarter comebacks, then they're going to lose those games. But it's like, no, there's actually, you can also win without having a fourth quarter comeback by being ahead in the fourth quarter. And I would expect that as the Bears have fewer fourth quarter comebacks, it's because they play better in quarters 1, 2, and 3. So they're not down 10 with 2 minutes to go and Caleb Williams has to be Superman. Doesn't mean they're going to win all their games without anything being late close. Of course, like they play some tough teams and there will be some fourth quarter comeback opportunities, but you look for it to be against the really good teams, not bad teams that or mediocre teams that you really should be able to handle and not need to have a fourth quarter comeback against there. Then you talk about like the completion percentage also being something that should regress in the opposite direction. Like I think it will be hard for Caleb Williams to have the 32nd ranked completion percentage again this season. Right now, another year more experienced in Ben Johnson's offense, another year on the same page as Rome Odunze, another year on the same page as Luther Burden, who is throwing to for the first time and emerged as a huge weapon, but they spent half the season still trying to figure each other out. And Colson Loveland, huge weapon, but they spent half of a season trying to figure each other out and how to get on the same page and have that connection that we saw develop late. And so by default, the Bears will have better completion percentage. Will it be top of the NFL, 70% kind of stuff yet? Probably not. But it just seems like a lot of the big concerns that national perspective has on the Bears about not as many turnovers, not as many fourth quarter comebacks, and the completion percentage thing is a problem, like those should all naturally correct and balance out a little bit so that, yes, what they did last season wasn't sustainable, but you're not trying to sustain the way they did it last season. You're trying to sustain last season's results, but not the process they used to get to those results. And it feels like they're primed to have a much more consistent process of, hey, offense plays better for 4 quarters, defense plays better for 4 quarters. And I think that's one of the big keys towards changing this narrative and really like convincing people nationally that, oh, this Bears team isn't just some fluke that flew by on the skin of its teeth or whatever, but like really is a contender that deserves national respect. So we'll take a closer look at what they have to do to fully earn that and cement themselves as like legit team that you don't have to have question marks about and doubts about just how good they can be. Next on Locked On Bears. This episode of Locked On Bears is brought to you by Odoo. Running a business shouldn't feel like you're trying to connect a bunch of systems that really weren't designed to work together and somehow never talk to each other. But that's where Odoo comes in. Odoo is an all-in-one business management software that brings every part of your business together in one powerful platform. From sales and accounting to inventory and marketing, everything works in one place, helping your team move faster, stay organized, and focus on growing the business instead of just focused on managing software. You know that the best organizations know that success isn't just about talent. It's about having everyone working together toward the same goal. That's true in sports, just like it is in business. That's been some of the great genius of Ben Johnson, getting these Bears players to play better than, the combined collective group, better than they would be individually. Great organizations win because operations matter, and that's why you should get Odoo. Try for free today at odoo.com/lockedon. That's odoo.com/lockedon. The Bears may never truly fully earn national media respect. So it felt like even when they're good, they haven't been able to truly fully earn that. There's always going to be a part of Bears fans that just feel slighted and feel like the national media perspective just isn't accurate, isn't capturing us, doesn't want this team to be successful or whatever you might want to paint it. But I do think there is a real path of success this season that really flips that narrative from like maybe they're pretenders to, oh, they're definitely contenders, and we should be looking out for this team every year for the next however many years, as long as Ben Johnson is coaching and Caleb Williams is healthy at quarterback and they keep hitting on some draft picks like they are right now. Like they are on the perennial contender track. And that doesn't mean like, oh, every year they need to be Super Bowl favorites, but like it's about entering the stratosphere of like teams that matter, teams that you think, oh, as long as they haven't been eliminated, they could make some real noise here, right? That caliber of team that feels like, right now, the 49ers and the Rams and the Seahawks and the Broncos, and the Jaguars and the Patriots. And I guess the Eagles are kind of teetering on this line of just like year in and year out, unless they blow everything up, they're going to be in the conversation. Even the Chiefs, I probably still belong in there too. Like they're going to be, they might not be Super Bowl favorites, but they're going to be pushing at least a second round of the playoffs. The expectation is at least a second round of the playoffs, pushing for a conference championship game and, at least a thin shot at a Super Bowl. Like that's the kind of the level of respect the Bears are looking to earn this year and can earn this year with the right kind of success. I think it's a little bit dumb, but I do think one of the things it's going to require is Caleb Williams' stat line to look better. And that's stupid because it's narrative based and not results based. Like if Caleb Williams wins 11 games this year, completing 65% of his passes, like all of a sudden, is he some much, much better quarterback than he was the year before, even though he won the same number of games? And, I think it's a dumb narrative, but I do think in the world of, hot takes and social media firestorms that like if you pull up his stat page and you see 59% completion percentage, it's like, oh, well, there you go. Like there's the easy shorthand stat. So I think, if Caleb can, of course, like officially become the first Bears quarterback to throw for 4,000 yards, which he was like 50 yards from last. He was like, 1/4's worth of a games of passes to do last year. He basically was already there. But if he can be the first Bears quarterback to throw for 4,000 yards and, hit a respectable completion percentage. We did a deep dive on Caleb's completion percentage and that whole sort of the pros and cons of like that as a stat measurement, what it really measures and what the Bears need to do to improve that. Like we kind of dove in on like what that means and what we can expect from a completion percentage standpoint. I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago now on the podcast. So scroll back through your podcast feed and take a look for that if you want more of a deep dive on what makes completion percentage and why it's not all on Caleb's shoulders, but what he needs to do better versus what the team needs to do better. But like if he can get in the 63, 65% range, middle of the pack, NFL, whatever, and 4,000 yards, then like I think the Caleb Williams doubts nationally will be gone. Like I don't think they should really exist now, but I think you can kind of eradicate them with just even that kind of marginal increase on a stat line, which feels stupid. It feels like in 2026 we should be beyond, well, just look at the QB's completion percentage and that tells me he was good or he was bad. There's a lot more that goes into playing football. But I also think from a team perspective, like it starts with the quarterback and him giving the uninformed fan the easy, I look at the stat line, I see 4,000 yards and a good completion percentage. He's a good QB. Like that just kind of checks a mental box for people of like, okay, he's crossed over into he's good category, even though it's not like super logical. But then beyond that, You need to see like 4-quarter wins from the Chicago Bears. There's too many fourth-quarter wins last year. I want to see 4-quarter wins where not that you lead from start to finish, but you're in control from start to finish. That you, when you are playing a non-playoff opponent, you look like the better team from the first play to the last play. Like you are, like they're trying to catch up to you. That you're setting the tone, you're establishing. That doesn't mean the other team doesn't score first, or you might have a batted pass that gets picked off and the other team gets some momentum in the game. But that from start to finish, you finish that football game and go, yeah, the Bears were the better team today. They were the whole time. Even though the Panthers or whoever had some nice moments, the Bears were clearly the better team from start to finish. Like you need more of those, like, I don't want to say dominant victories, because to me it's less about the margin of victory on the scoreboard. It's not like, oh, you got to win by 21 to make a point. No, but it's about like controlling a game and putting a tape out there that's like, oh man, the Bears ran the ball and really kind of dominated that game. Even though they only won by 7, they were really in control there from start to finish against, the non-playoff teams on your schedule, the mediocre to bad teams. Now the Bears are going to play a lot more playoff teams on their schedule this season, or teams that were playoff teams last year. And those are the ones that you're not going to win them all. You're not going to sweep the Eagles, Packers, Patriots, Seahawks, Buccaneers, Jaguars, and Bills over the course of the season. But you have to play all those teams really close. And to me, it's less, the win-loss percentage against those teams is not as important. Like, you may end up being, between a lot of those teams, you could end up being slightly below 500 and still win 11 games this season. But like, as long as you're right in there next to them and you play like you belong, that, you lost that game, but if those teams played 10 times, you'd split them 5-5. Like, that's the way, or 6-4, or whatever. But like, that's the way this Bears team has to put up, that they control the game against bad teams and they give a heck of a fight to all the really good teams on their schedule. There's no rolling over. There's no, oh crap, they're down 21-3 to the Bills in the second half, and it takes a Caleb Williams fourth quarter comeback to tie it up at 21 in the fourth quarter. Like, that's the difference, right? That last year they could still play close and beat those really good teams. They just had to do it at the end of games because they couldn't get out of their own way for the first 3 quarters. Now you got to play them close from start to finish. It's really about consistency there. And then, to kind of add on top of that, this all kind of plays into the same image of the team. You do need to show that this is a Bears defense that you can rely on, that it's not just like your fingers crossed, oh, we need a turnover here. It seems like, Jordan Love or whoever, they're just marching up and down the field every drive, and you're just hoping that you end with a turnover at the end. And more often than not, the Bears bailed you out last season. But you need a defense that you're not waiting to bail you out, that you can rely on a little bit. They don't need to be a top 5 defense. They don't even need to be a top 10 defense necessarily. But like, can they make you a stop when you really need it, like in key situations? And can you make some stops over the course of the game? Just be a little bit more consistent on that side of the ball. I think that's the last like piece of that puzzle, because I think if the defense does that and Caleb Williams is at the 63-65% completion percentage, then you will have a team that plays a lot more consistent from quarter 1 to quarter 4. You will have a team that dominates bad teams, and you will have a team that plays playoff teams really close. Like, all those things will come together if you do kind of the foundational pieces there. And I think that's where the split is, right? Like, Bears fans fully expect that those things will happen. The defense will be better, Caleb will be better, everything will be better, and then they'll play closer 4 quarters and be that team. And I think national media has a little bit more doubts of, well, will Caleb Williams play that much better, or is this kind of the best version of Caleb Williams now? And will the defense play that much better, or is the pass rush still going to be a big concern? The defensive line still going to be a big concern, and they've got Kyler Gordon's already hurt in the secondary. His injury is going to keep being a concern, and that group's still not going to be as good as they are, or as good as they can be. That's where the disconnect is there. I think the best news for Bears fans is that we know Ben Johnson doesn't care at all what anybody outside of that building thinks about what his team is going to do this season. Caleb Williams pays attention, but doesn't care at all what ESPN thinks the Bears are going to do, what Locked On Bears thinks the Bears are going to do, what anybody thinks the Bears are going to do. Like, Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams are solely focused on their own expectations for themselves and for their teammates and for their coaches. And they're going to try and outwork everybody to get to those heights that they set for themselves. And so everything else outside of that, the betting odds, the power rankings, the podcasters, we're all just noise, and they're not focusing or paying too close attention. I think Caleb sees it, hears it, reads it, but uses his motivation and doesn't. It's not about, I got to prove Lauren Cox wrong. I mean, not me, but you know what I mean? Or I got to prove ESPN or The Ringer or whoever. I got to prove them wrong. I got to prove Peter Bukowski wrong. Like, no, that's not where Caleb Williams is coming from, but he's got to prove himself every single day, and he knows that. And so they have the right mentality to get where they need to go, and now we just got to let them do it. Let them make that work and really enjoy it every step of the process. These are the formative times of the Bears. If they become a dynasty, we will look back at these moments as like when this was all coming together. So let's really take it all in and enjoy it. And enjoy, hey, if everybody wants to overlook the Bears and they can be a little underdog still, even after winning the division and winning a playoff game, that doesn't seem like a bad thing. Don't have to have a big target on your back. You can be the underdog and the scrappy underdog again. Sure. Let's do it. I'd love to lean into that on the Locked On Bears podcast. So make sure you hit the subscribe button on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts, because that's going to be the best way to keep up with all of our daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. Although we are in our slow season right now, just for another, 2 or 3 weeks, we're at 3 podcasts a week instead of the normal 5, because Bears don't get to training camp until late July. So in the week before training camp, we'll be back up to 5 days a week. But this week and next week, and I think one more after that, we're just going to be 3 days a week. So I won't talk to you tomorrow, but I plan to have a podcast out for you first thing Monday morning. We'll probably do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday next week. So make sure you're subscribed so you tune in and get another opportunity to bear down.